Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me for the Earthquake Preparedness and Home Hazards presentation. Um, some housekeeping stuff before we get started. I have turned off everyone's video, mic, and mic. If you have any questions, I'm going to turn on the chat so that you can type your questions in them as we go along. And I will try and answer them as they come up. Okay, so before we get started, I want to bring up this poll just so I get a sense of, oh, it's not going to let me. Never mind. My poll was going to be, how prepared do you feel for an earthquake right now? Do you guys feel very prepared, not prepared at all, somewhere in the middle? You still have some work to do. Maybe you have some supplies, but not enough. How are you guys feeling about your personal earthquake preparedness? Okay, kind of quiet group, no worries. We'll move right along in the middle. So we have somebody who's in the middle. Okay. Well, hopefully this training, this will provide some information to help you get towards that next step up. There are some simple things that you can do and some more complex, more expensive things you can do. Okay. So Malibu is uniquely situated to be impacted by both local and long distance faults. The map in front of you guys is the Malibu Coast Fault System. It is active and is forecast to be capable of producing a 6.5 to 7 magnitude earthquake on the Richter scale. In the event of an earthquake, we have two potential scenarios. If it's a local earthquake, the city may be heavily damaged physically. So we might have some damages to buildings, roads, canyon roads, infrastructure. But because it's a local earthquake, resources and aid would be likely quickly to come due to lack of competing need, and basic utilities would be restored relatively quickly. In comparison, if the San Andreas Fault ruptured, that could affect not just Southern California, potentially all the way up to the Bay Area. The city may not be as heavily damaged physically, so buildings may have some superficial cracking, but we wouldn't see as many intensive structural issues, but the city's utilities would be. So power, gas, water that comes up and over the mountains from other areas would likely be impacted. Outside resources and aid would be likely slow in coming due to the expansive nature of the earthquake and the high demand throughout all of California for supplies, for aid. Water supplies will likely be damaged and utilities may not be restored for a while. Residents should be prepared to be self-sustaining for 2 to 3 weeks in the event of an earthquake on the San Andreas. As seen in the previous slide, there are numerous local faults in and around Malibu. Malibu has lots of steep terrain, which is prone to landslides and rock slides. Not news to anybody, hopefully. But I do want to add in here that those landslides and rock slides may also be triggered by an earthquake, not just a heavy rain. Roads can become impassable and effectively isolate Malibu, especially the canyon roads. If it's a local earthquake, we could see more damage potentially on PCH. And if it triggers multiple landslides on our canyon roads, we could be a landlocked island at that point. Yes, there are ways out of Malibu despite those main thoroughfares, but those are our main ones. Resources could be scarce, and resources beyond what you potentially have, but into things like stores and equipment needed to support the local community. So support and aid could likely be slow in coming to Malibu, and the city does have a limited local resource. Number of stores and shops could be impacted by a big earthquake. We have close to 12,000 residents, potentially more. If it's on the weekend, way more. And we have a limited number of grocery stores and a limited number of pharmacies and a limited number of pet supply stores. And these are the kind of things that you guys want to start thinking about. And again, your goal when preparing, ideally, is 2 to 3 weeks. If you can go more than that, that would be amazing. If not, that's okay too. You prepare to the best of your ability with what you have at the time. Okay, now that I'm done scaring you all, that was not my intention, but it is kind of scary to think about. I want to emphasize the importance of having a plan, getting prepared now before the earthquake happens, and knowing your plan, creating your go bag, having your stay kit or stay box, and mitigating your home hazard. And some of those home hazard mitigations can be relatively easy fixes that you can do yourself. As a reminder, I want to encourage everyone to sign up to get disaster notifications. The city has a reverse 911 style system named Everbridge that we will send out messaging to you in the affected area when there is an immediate threat to life safety in that area. I do also want to encourage everyone out there to register for alerts in not just the areas you live, but the places you go to work, you go to school, your favorite cousin's house, your partner's house. If you spend, let's say, more than 8 hours a day on the weekends or 20 hours a week in total at one location in particular, make sure you're registering for that area's alerts, whether that's city or county. Take myself for an example. I live in Ventura County, so I'm registered for Ventura County alerts. I'm registered for LA County's Alert LA because I drive through LA County to come to work, and I'm also registered with the city of Malibu. Any questions on that? Awesome. Okay, let's review some steps that go into creating a disaster plan. First, you want to talk to those around you. Get to know your neighbors if you don't already. Make sure you're talking to your family, your friends, your coworkers about getting prepared. Taking that step, you're already encouraging them to get prepared, and it spreads that preparedness out like ripples in a pond. Know the emergency plans of the places where you and your family spend the most time. So if you have children, try and know their disaster plans for their schools, adult daycare facilities. In a previous class, I had a gentleman who spends a lot of his time at a theater company in Ventura County. So I am encouraged him to get to know his theater company's disaster plan. Your work plan, get to know your disaster work plan as well. If you don't have a family reunification site, sites plural ideally, but at least one, talk about it and decide on it. Have that site marked on a paper map and saved in your phone, and make sure everyone knows it. So for my family, I pick on my family a lot in these trainings. We had a particular park in the town I grew up in, and my mom made sure that both my brother and I could get to that park and could get to it from one of the 6 ways you could get access to that park. But make sure not just that you have a site, but your family knows it and you practice getting there. Have an out of area contact. The further away from where you are, from where the disaster is, the better it is. Ideally, it would be out of state. But if you don't have anybody out of state, if you could get out of city, that'd be great. Out of county, even better. Out of Southern California, even better. Out of state, best. I will add a caveat here. I don't know how out of country would work, but if that works for you and that's who you want it to be, then that's who you want it to be. Couple things with the out of area contact. First, I'm going to pick on my family again. Make sure everyone has the out of area contact saved on their phone and written down on a piece of paper that is either kept in their wallet, their purse, or their backpack. Make sure it's all the same person. In the instance of my family, there was a bit of confusion about whether it was person A or person B. My mom believed it was person B. The rest of us said it was person A. And make sure that person knows that they're your out of area contact. You, again, to pick on my family, you don't want to be in a situation where we call our out of area contact and say, hey, I'm okay, click. And then my brother calls and says, hey, I'm okay, click. And at this point, our out of area contact is going, why the heck are you people calling me and telling me you're okay? I'm glad you're okay. But they didn't know they needed to be checking off our names and saying so-and-so is okay, so that they can be that relay of information when phone lines are maybe a bit more jammed up. And make sure you have all your important phone numbers written down on a piece of paper or in a book that you keep either in your purse, your wallet, your backpack, your car. You want to have it close to hand whenever you leave the house. We rely on our wallet and pocket computers, as my partner says, so much that if I asked any one of you in this Zoom right now to name or to list, I'm not going to actually ask for this, but if I asked you to list 2 important phone numbers to you, so your parents, your children, maybe your partner and a sibling, your favorite cousin, your child's daycare facility, whatever it is, would you be able to do that without looking at your phone? I am making myself learn my important numbers, so I would. But that being said, I still have a 3x5 card that I've written all the important numbers down, and I keep that in my purse in case something happens to my phone and I'm in a situation where I need to contact my important people, but my phone is dead. When you're in your home or in places where you spend a lot of time, take a moment and identify safe spots in your favorite rooms that you would potentially need, you could take cover if there was an earthquake. Look for sturdy tables, sturdy desks, away from heavy, unsecured furniture, away from windows and glass doors, and against solid interior walls. You want to look for places that you could be safely. A while ago, my goodness, I think it was in the 90s, the early 2000s, there was a forwarded email chain circulating about the triangle of life. There is some validity in that, but your best chance is if there's a really, really intense, scary 9.0 earthquake, it's to get under a sturdy table or a desk or something that would protect you from falling debris. And again, I'm going to say this one more time. Please, please have your important phone numbers printed or written down in case your phone dies. Had that happen in real life. Okay. Creating a stay kit. This is also known as a stay box. These kits should be personalized to you and your family's needs. Me personally, I am hearing impaired. I wear hearing aids in both my right and my left ear. So I have hearing aid batteries stashed everywhere like a squirrel. I have them in my partner's car. I have them in my car. I have them in my purse. I have them in my backup purse. I have them in my backpack. I have them at my desk. I have them at my parents' house. I have them at my best friend's house. They are everywhere. If you have something that you need, whether that's a comfort item like chapstick or eye drops for your contacts, spare glasses, something to that effect, you want to make sure you have it. And you want to make sure that your stay kit, even if it's purchased online, gives you a great start, but it should still be personalized to you and your family's needs. Each stay kit, should have 2 to 3 weeks worth of food that is shelf stable and you like to eat. If you absolutely hate Hormel's chili and you hate it with a passion on the best day, are you really going to be wanting eating Hormel's chili out of a can when it's cold? Flipping that on its head, if you have a child like my cousin when they were small, who loved canned green beans, absolutely loved green beans, make sure you put those canned green beans in your stay box. They're shelf stable, they're in a can. They know that their child liked to eat them, so that's a good go-to. When you're packing your food, make sure you pack utensils to access the food. So if it's canned food, make sure you're packing a manual can opener. Spoons, forks, knives, whatever is appropriate for your particular food choice. And don't forget your furry, four-legged family members. A lot of people have pets nowadays, and pets are family. So make sure you're packing 2 to 3 weeks worth of food for them as well. With the water, you want 2 to 3 weeks of water per person for the entire, 2 to 3 weeks of water. And for that, you want to plan for 1 gallon per person per day. That is just for drinking and sanitation. If you are a person who loves water, you can't get enough water, make sure you up that to maybe 1.5 gallons per person for you per day. If you're one of those people who absolutely hates water, you can't stand it, make sure you're getting yourself some flavored water packets potentially, or Gatorade. Just check the label, and if it's not as shelf stable, make sure you're rotating it regularly. Again, make sure you're including any pets in your area, for example, or in your home. For example, my dog drinks water like it's going out of fashion. So for him, we're actually going 1.5 gallons per dog per day for our planning. Pack comfortable clothes and closed-toed shoes. Oftentimes in California, when we have a pair of jeans, maybe a little worn out, maybe not as fashionable, you don't really want to wear them all that often anymore, but you don't want to get rid of them, you put them in the earthquake box. You're like, oh, it'll be fine when I need an earthquake. The earthquake, depending on when it could happen at 2 o'clock in the morning. And now you're stuck in a situation where you're wearing your potentially least favorite pair of jeans that are scratchy and maybe a bit pinchy in the knees, and you just really don't like them. And you're stuck wearing that for a day or 3 or 5, depending on the situation. I'm not saying go out and buy, double sets of your entire wardrobe, but make sure if you have comfortable clothes that you prefer, that you're including those. So if you prefer jeans versus sweatpants, make sure you include jeans that you wouldn't mind wearing, that are comfortable to wear for long periods of time, that maybe aren't from 15 years ago. With the closed-toed shoes, I do want to point out that these need to be sturdy closed-toed shoes. I adore my Toms. Well, they're Toms knockoffs, but I absolutely love them. They are not your earthquake shoe. You want something that's sturdy, a solid sole, and is going to provide protection to your foot. In Northridge, the #1 injury was actually cuts to the bottom of the foot from broken glass. So please make sure it's a sturdy shoe. Running shoes, if they're not too worn out, are good, or hiking boots, if they're not too worn out, are good. Flameless light source. The hand crank batteries are great. If you're going to use a flashlight or a headlamp or any battery powered light source, make sure you're storing the batteries separately, but in the same location. So for me, I have a Ziploc bag that I put batteries, six AAA batteries. My headlamp takes 3 batteries, so I'll have another set in case they die. And it's out of the headlamp, but easily put back together. Radio. If you have a small child, those hand crank radios are great. They provide light, they provide entertainment, and they provide information with the radio. First aid kit, very important to personalize it to you and your family's needs. Some people are allergic to some things, and commercial first aid kits do the best they can with trying to address a broad number of issues. If you know you have a family member who is on blood thinners or has a clotting issue, make sure you include more bleeding control materials. If you have someone who's allergic to a particular type of painkiller or a particular antiseptic spray, make sure you remove those if they're included and swap out something better that's better for you and your family. Last thing on this slide is I want you guys to start thinking about where you would sleep if your home was so severely damaged in an earthquake that you were not able to safely stay inside, and start planning for that. Again, I like to pick on my friends and family. My friend has a tent box or a camping box that she uses as a double for her earthquake kit. And she has 3 weeks worth of food and water, her tents, all of her camping supplies, and it's all ready to go in a box. And when they go camping, they pull it out, they swap out food and water, and then put it back. So for her, she would stay in a tent in her backyard because that's what they plan to do. If you own an RV and it is parked near your home, would you stay there instead? If that's your plan, is your RV in a covered shed or a covered area attached to the house? Is it far enough away from the house so that if there's falling debris, it won't get damaged? Start thinking about some of those questions. Any questions on this slide? Oops, too far. Okay, excellent. So I want to call out water purification right now and take a quick detour into this. We are uniquely situated And in a unique situation right now, in the event of a large earthquake, water supply to Malibu will likely be disrupted. So you want to make sure you have enough water to last 2 to 3 weeks. And you might want a backup way or two to figure out how you can purify water. There are many options out there and many systems out there. But you want to figure out what works best for you and your family. I do want to say that a lot of water purification systems require fresh water. And those freshwater systems do not work with seawater. And you want to make sure that if you go for a water purification system that requires fresh water, you have access to a freshwater source, whether that's an ornamental pond, a lake, like around Malibu Lake, or something like that. Some examples are water purification tablets and pumps that can be purchased at camping stores like Big Five, REI. Some places, Dick's usually has water purification tablets. Sometimes they have the water purification pumps. With the pumps in particular, make sure you are familiar with how to operate it and how to replace the filter before the disaster. So if you are a backpacking aficionado, this is probably a non-issue for you. If you're not into backpacking, this is something you will want to practice a couple times to get familiar with it. If you want to take a more old school route, you can always boil fresh water. You want to use however much water you bring up to a boil, you want to bring it up to a rolling boil. And I'm not talking about little bubbles around the edges where we're in a hurry and we add the pasta. I want that rolling, active surface where you have big bubbles coming up over the top. You want to leave it at a rolling boil for 1 minute and then cool it down, and then it'll be safe to drink. Please remember to always buy from a reputable dealer. I know Amazon is an amazing thing, and you can find just about anything on there, but they don't always come from the most reputable dealers. So please do your research before buying the product. Buy from reputable dealers. If you have questions, go to a camping store or backpacking store. They're usually really helpful. And test it out, become familiar with it, and practice it before an earthquake happens. Moving on to bleach purifying water. You want to use unscented, unadulterated household bleach, excuse me. Oftentimes you can find relatively small bottles at 99-cent store, Dollar General, Dollar Tree, that kind of place. This is the ratios you want to use. This is taken directly out of a FEMA manual. If you are using bleach, it is really important that it is unscented and unadulterated liquid bleach. So no gel bleach, no powder bleach. You want just straight, normal, unscented liquid bleach. When you add the correct ratio for the amount of water, so let's say I have a quart of water, I would add 4 drops of bleach. You want to stir or shake the mixture quite vigorously and then let it stand for 30 minutes before use. If the water is cloudy or from a cloudy source, you want to double the bleach you add. So if it's cloudy, instead of 4 drops, you want to add 8 drops. It doesn't taste the best, but it is clean and it is safe to drink. For 1 gallon of water, it's 8 drops. For clear water, and cloudy water is 16. At home, I have a 5-gallon bucket from your average blue and orange home supply do-it-yourself centers, a small bottle of bleach, some metal water bottles that I have the amount of water and the appropriate ratio written in Sharpie on the bottle. I've also written the ratios of how much water to how much bleach on the lid of the bucket itself. So, and I have it printed on the bleach container and written it and taped it there. And I store all of this inside the bucket with a lid on, and I know where it is, and if I'm in a hurry, I can grab it and go. I did have somebody ask me a few years ago how much bleach you add to 5 gallons of water. So for 5 gallons of water, it is 40 drops of bleach, or 1/3 of a tablespoon plus 8 drops. And that is written on the bottom of the lid for me. Okay, moving on, we're going to talk about some simple steps you can take now to make sure that you and your home are safer from earthquakes. First thing I'm going to recommend is that everyone has an earthquake bedside kit. Earthquakes can happen at any time of the day or night. You want to make sure that you have that kit ready to go in case it is a 3 a.m. earthquake. You can buy earthquake bedside kits online from a reputable dealer, but honestly, I'm going to encourage you guys to make your own. You can use a shopping bag, a pillowcase, an old backpack, put those things, a flashlight, sturdy closed-toed shoes, pants, and depending on your sleeping preference, you might want pants and a shirt, and work gloves in the kit, and either put it in the bottom of your drawer of your bedside table or physically tie it to your bed. You want to make sure that in the event of an earthquake, you don't have to hunt to find your earthquake kit. Again, the #1 injury to individuals in Northridge after the Northridge quake was cuts to the bottom of the feet from people walking on broken glass. If you have any special needs, for me it's hearing aids, you want to make sure you take those into account with your earthquake kit. So if you need glasses, maybe put an old pair of eyeglasses in there. If you have a medication that you need, maybe keep 1 dose of that in your kit as well. Any questions? Okay. For those, we're going to talk about securing decorations now. For those familiar with small children or have had small children, a lot of these suggestions will be really familiar to you. Make sure you're securing heavy mounted decor and TV to wall studs. Hang paintings and mirrors on closed loop hooks. So the left hand image is of a closed loop hook. It's actually got a bit of metal that you have to depress to remove the painting or decoration item from that hook. Use museum wax or museum putty or Velcro to secure small knickknacks and loose items on shelves, especially picture frames. Because of the glass in there, they will fall and break. Install latches or child-proof locks on cabinets. This is especially true in the kitchen area or any other high storage areas with fragile or breakable items. So curio cabinets, bureaus, if you install that child-proof lock or a latch on that cabinet, it'll rattle around inside the cabinet. And yes, some of the stuff might get damaged, but it's not going to all come flying out onto the floor and break and then be a hazard to you. For chemicals, you want to make sure you're moving chemicals to the lowest level possible that is safe for you and your family. And heavy items, you want to move them to the low shelf or the floor if possible. When you're moving chemicals, please make sure you're reading the labels. Some chemicals should not be stored together. Don't forget to check the garage and secure all your heavy cabinets, heavy equipment, and chemicals. And again, some chemicals should not be stored together. You might need to move some stuff outside or across the garage, or maybe to another room. Easy example, bleach and ammonia, but there's a bunch of them out there, so make sure you're reading those labels. Securing furniture, again, hopefully this is somewhat familiar to you guys. You'll want to secure bookcases, heavy and or tall furniture to the walls with brackets or earthquake straps. Specifically, you want to make sure you're securing things not just to the walls, but to the studs. To pick on a family member, when I was younger, one of my aunts, being a very proactive mother, secured the changing table and child dresser to the wall, but she didn't secure it to a stud. So when my cousin was being adventurous and opened the drawers to the cabinet and climbed on the cabinet, it did delay that tip over, but it still came over and ripped the the straps out of the wall. So please make sure you're tying them to the studs. My cousin was okay, in case anybody's wondering. Strap down TVs or mount them to the studs, especially some of those giant TVs that take up an entire wall. Make sure those are very secure. Anchor or secure anything in the ceiling, like heavy lights, heavy decorative glass lights, fans, or chandeliers. Unfortunately, the only fatality in the Napa Valley quake, I believe it was 2015, potentially earlier, was because of a head injury caused by a flat screen that had fallen and was unsecured. So please, please take a look at your home with a critical eye and a little bit of honesty and say, you know what? I think I need to go to Home Depot or Lowe's or call my contractor or my handyman and get him to secure this bookshelf, this TV, whatever it is. You want to do that now before the earthquake happens. That way you're safer in your own home. Securing appliances. These suggestions may need some professional help and generally cost more than the previous slides, but they're still very, very important because they can cause just as much, if not more, damage and injury. You really want to make sure if you have a old school tank water heater that you are strapping that water heater to the studs with metal straps. Use flexible connectors on all gas lines for appliances, whether that's water heaters, ovens, stoves, clothes dryers. You want to make sure that you have that flexion in the event that the appliance moves in an earthquake. For older homes, make sure your house is bolted to the foundation, and then secure and bolt any freestanding wooden stoves or fireplace inserts. I'm not sure how common those are in Malibu, but it's always important to say. As I said before, earthquakes can happen at any time of the day or night. Specifically, look at your bedroom with a critical eye to earthquake safety. As a reminder, you should already have an earthquake kit, or hopefully you'll be building one tonight or sometime in the near future, that contains a pair of closed-toed shoes, pants, and depending on your sleeping style, a t-shirt, flashlight, and work gloves, and that should all be easily accessible. If you have to pare it down to just a couple items, make sure it's closed-toed shoes and a flashlight. If you have any heavy paintings, artworks, or objects above your head or against the wall above your head when you're sleeping, consider moving them or securing them more firmly. Ideally, move them away from you. Would you want that falling on you at 2 o'clock in the morning if there's an earthquake? Make sure you're securing mirrors, dressers, and bookcases. And if possible, move those tall, heavy furniture pieces away from doors and beds. You don't want anything falling on you in bed, and you don't want anything falling and blocking your way out of that doorway. Take a look around your room. What other things could harm you if an earthquake strikes when you're asleep? If an earthquake happens when you're asleep, if possible, try to get out of bed safely and either lie under or next to the bed. If you can't do that, you want to wake up, turn over so that your face and stomach are pressed against the mattress, cover your head and neck with a pillow and wait for it to stop. If you have some heavy fixtures or a fan above your head, try as much as you can to move to somewhere safe in case it falls. I'm going to take this moment to remind everyone that during an earthquake, it's very, very important that you stop, drop, cover, and hold on. I know as Californians, we tend to do that thing where an earthquake happens and we stand or sit where we are for a few moments and assess, do I actually need to move? Is this going to be a bad one, or can I just stay here? We want to get in the habit of, if we feel an earthquake, we want to drop, cover, and hold on. If you can, get down and under a sturdy table, desk, or something that will protect your body. If you can't, protect your head and neck to the best of your ability and get next to an interior wall away from any large glass windows, mirrors, or glass walls. Please, please, please do not try to rush outside. Things may be falling down from above whether they be branches, power lines, roof tiles, or if you're downtown LA, big pieces of plate glass. Please be careful about going to doorways. In a big earthquake, if you're taking shelter in a doorway, you may break some fingers or get smacked in the face while hanging onto the doorway if the door itself is swinging in an earthquake. Wait until shaking has stopped and you can move safely again before assessing your surroundings and deciding what to do next. Remember, not every earthquake is the biggest one. There are some that are pre-shocks leading up to a big one, and there are some that may follow afterwards as aftershocks. If everyone has a different level of mobility, if you have a cane, do the best you can with getting as low as you can, whether that's in a chair or if you can get all the way to the ground, covering up your head and neck and getting under or next to something sturdy. And get as low as you can. And again, not everyone is the same, and everyone has different physical constraints and mobility. Availability, if you're using a walker or wheelchair, is very important that you lock your mobility device, um, and take a seat if you are standing. Cover your head and neck and hold on until the shaking stops. And remember, your circumstance and your mobility may change with age or circumstances, whether that's a surgery, an injury, or something else like a pregnancy. If you have the ability to do so, please get away from tall, heavy furniture and wall ornaments before locking your mobility device. Wait until the shaking stops and you can safely move again before assessing your surroundings and what to do next. I'm going to take a brief detour into after an earthquake. Remember, oftentimes earthquakes are followed by aftershocks. If you feel an aftershock, make sure you continue your very good practice of drop, covering, and holding on in a safe place until the shaking has stopped. The first earthquake isn't always the strongest earthquake. In Malibu, residents should be aware with strong, sustained shaking that it may cause landslides or maybe even a tsunami. When it's safe to move again, you want to assess your surroundings for potential damages and hazards. Don't forget to look up, especially if you're outside. There might be broken power lines, down branches that are just barely holding on, loose roof tiles. Then attempt to help those around you if they need it and if you can. In a disaster, it's very important that you text, don't call. You want to reserve the bandwidth for calls for those who need the most help. Texting saves space for those who need to call 911. If you do need to call 911, make sure you're giving as much information as you can to your specific location. If you need to call, please keep it brief and promise to call or text with more information later. And this is where having an out of area contact would come in. If you have an extinguisher with you or nearby, or you can safely access one, use it to put out any small fires around you. If at any time you feel unsafe or if it is beyond your capabilities to handle the small fire, call 911 and then follow your disaster plan, whether that's your family, your work, your school, your favorite cousins whose house you're spending the night at. You want to follow that disaster plan. About tsunamis, tsunamis are possible, but highly unlikely from where our local fault lines are. If you are at the beach and you feel sustained shaking for more than 20 seconds, once it is safe to do so, please take what matters and walk, don't drive, inland and up. And when I say take what matters, take your children, your partner, your pets, potentially your purse or any information that would be helpful for you. Leave your cooler, leave your beach toys, leave your towel. You can buy that stuff again if a tsunami does end up happening. If you're at the beach and you hear a roaring sound, or you see the beach suddenly recede, that is your cue to walk inland and up. The water does not always recede prior to tsunami, but if you ever feel like you're in a situation where you're at the beach, especially after an earthquake with sustained shaking, it's just safer to go inland and up, hang out for a little bit, and then once you get the all clear, head back down. Any questions about that? Okie dokie. So I have some resources for you guys. This presentation is available on the city's website at malibucity.org/prep, PREPMONTH, prep month. And the recording will be available as well. These hyperlinks will be live and active in the presentation in the PDF. I do want to call out ready.lacounty.gov. That is a LA County-wide preparedness website that has a lot of great information. Ready.gov is the FEMA preparedness and ready preparedness and disaster and emergency preparedness website. There are a ton of different disasters that you can learn about. They have everything from avalanches to hurricanes to tsunamis and many more. It's worth a look to both learn and to get prepared. The American Red Cross is always a great asset. LA County Fire, again, has some lovely disaster and preparedness tips. CalOES.ca.gov is the California Office of Emergency Services, and they have some information there as well. And then specifically for earthquakes, there is earthquakecountry.org, and that is all about how to get prepared for an earthquake and some steps and guidance you can take now. For those of you that like to listen to podcasts, there is a podcast called The Big One, as it says in quotation marks, and it is, I believe, KCRW did a deep dive into what a potential rupture on the San Andreas Fault would be like for those who live in LA. If you guys have any questions, I'm gonna give you all the ability to unmute yourselves, so feel free. I will be here the next 10 minutes. Happy to answer any questions you guys might have. Or you could pop them in the chat if you're not comfortable with unmuting yourselves. And again, thank you everyone for coming, and I hope you have a fantastic day. And you're very, very welcome, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming. And the recording will be available, if not by the end of this week, by the end of next week for sure. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to hit that mic. Thank you, everyone. I'll be here if you guys have any questions, just shout them out or drop them in the chat, and have a fantastic night. Thank you, everyone.